Welcome to the Cerebral Valley podcast on Newcomer. I'm back with Max Child and James Wilsterman, my Cerebral Valley co-hosts and the Volley co-founders. We are very excited about this episode. The meat of it will be a draft of the most valuable AI companies we get. It's as close as I think in Silicon Valley you can get to watching sports, hopefully, or fantasy
debate TV show. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I overcomplicated it to make sure I got I won't spoil it. Anyway, we took it very seriously, and even if all our listeners forget about it, I am sure. James, what was the time window? It's 5? Is it
5 years?
Yeah. In 5 years, we'll all be checking to see how we did. But before that, Cerebral Valley, the conference, is on Wednesday. And, obviously, for the people going in person, you get why you're curious. It's like, okay. But then for everybody else, the videos from the conference will be posted on YouTube and in the newsletter, newcomer.co. So this conference will be brought to you digitally. We have not just hyped up an event you will not get to consume. You will get to see the talks. So look forward to that. I think usually we put some of the best ones in the podcast feed. And we just wanted to sort of take stock going into the conference, sort of big themes that are going to be on our mind, and then what's changed from the first Cerebral Valley in March. So yeah, let's get to it. All right, I said you guys could go for themes go for themes first, and I would play cleanup.
Oh,
so
James, why don't you go? Still thinking about my themes.
Yeah. I have noticed a theme kind of gaining some heat over the last few weeks on Twitter/X of kind of this big debate around open source versus closed source in terms of safety, right? I think this ties in with the executive order put out by the Biden administration, and kind of a raging debate, I guess, or simmering debate of whether these larger closed source language model companies are in the business of regulatory capture through their efforts to speak around model safety and get the Biden administration involved, or whether that comes from a true concern and how that impacts companies who are putting out open source models for the community.
Okay, I'm going to jump on that. Open source versus closed source. I think that's probably the top in my mind. And in some ways, I'd almost frame it as like, I think the first conference ended up having more of the pro open source people. We ended with Hugging Face and Replit. Both of them are very pro open source.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have Databricks back. They're pretty pro open source. Whereas this conference, we're ending the day with Vinod Khosla, who has been somewhat critical of, he wants more sort of control and regulation. We'll get the exact nuance of his open source take. And then Mustafa Suleiman at Inflection, and the DeepMind co-founder, who's going to end the day, has been super supportive of regulation and somewhat apprehensive about open source. So I think this conference in some ways will be the response to the really pro open source of the first. Of course, I think open source is very popular in the not open AI world. So I wouldn't be surprised still if probably the majority of our panelists are still pro open source, or what do you guys think?
I guess one thing I wanted to ask you guys on this topic is, last time at the conference, a lot of discussion was about the letter that just came out with a lot of signatories around taking a pause on AI development.
Modded
for
Stability
6
had
months.
signed it totally
Yes.
perplexingly. Yeah.
Yeah, which was confusing to a lot of people. And I guess my question is, at the time, it felt like there was a lot of heat on companies, even like OpenAI and Sam Altman, for being cavalier with their development of AI and causing, an AI race and putting out ChatGPT and, before the bigger, more cautious companies like Google had released their AIs, right? And I really think in like 6 months, that has just totally changed, where, now that you have this open source community, putting out models, like OpenAI is able to like look like the responsible stewards of AI going to the White House and, you know, getting regulations in place. Just curious if you guys agree with that assessment.
I do think a lot of the safety talk has died down. I guess the executive order is maybe a contrary example of that. Although, maybe the White House timeline is like 6 months behind everyone else's timeline. But it does seem like people are a lot less hung up on like, is the AI going to kill everyone in sort of the tech industry? And then I guess simultaneously, we got this massive executive order banning, or not banning, but regulating models over a certain size, et cetera, et cetera. So it is interesting to think about if there's going to be this sort of waves and troughs, or peaks and troughs of the hype cycle around safety. And I feel like we're in a little bit of a trough inside the industry right now. But 6 months from now, that could change again. We just got to keep having conferences.
In March, GPT-4 was like, a shockwave, and it had come over 3.5. And I think it felt like, man, if this keeps going, like, we're going to have generalized AI tomorrow. And then nobody has really caught up with them, right? There are open source models, and people can say, oh, this is better than OpenAI on cost. But I don't think anyone, even in specialized use cases, has really
beaten
had
for.
anything as smart. So then there's just a little less fear of like, oh my God, it's becoming like so, that is just not sort of, the pace hasn't been so out of control. And I think that's part of what has cooled things down. But I think the Biden executive order is like a huge deal and shows that there's very active sort of government interference, and like Europe has been talking about things. So I don't know. I think this question of cracking down on open source is very real, but the open source community has certainly been vibrant, and the other piece of that is that firms like Andreessen and others have been very loud about sort of positioning themselves as super pro open source.
Yeah, interesting.
Next theme.
All right, I have a theme for you guys to think about here. I think one of the all-time, maybe the number one all-time Silicon Valley investing philosophy for all categories of software is, we like to invest in companies that sell picks and shovels, not the companies that dig for gold, right? We like to fund the tool makers, not the tool users in many cases. And I think what's interesting just in the last 6 months between the previous conference and the current conference is the sort of what tools were in vogue 6-7 months ago, and then what tools are in vogue today. And then the sort of cherry on top of that is OpenAI itself, very, very recently announced this kind of huge wave of first-party tools improvements, whether it's retrieval improvements, context increases, speed, cost, releasing anyone able to make their own GPT character to kind of go after the character AIs of the world. Like, they really came hard on like a bunch of tools categories that I would say 6-7 months ago were being funded as like pretty compelling standalone companies. And I think it's sort of a two-way question, which is one, is tools investment still good idea in an AI world? Like, or is OpenAI going to eat this all alive? And then I guess two, like, who is still exciting in the tool space, and who do we think has like a strong foundation for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that question of will OpenAI just eat everything applies in every part of the AI. I mean, that was a theme of the first conference, definitely. Just like how relevant is everybody except OpenAI, and sort of an ongoing question. So certainly, I think now with the developer conference, this thread on tools, and then I think, given ChatGPT is clearly the most popular consumer AI app.
Well, I'd be interested. I mean, you have authentic conversations with venture capitalists regularly, Eric, right? Behind the scenes that don't all get published. Like, do you ever get some authentic expression of concern about tools companies that they've backed in the space that were like, well, maybe we jumped on this tools idea too early and it actually isn't a standalone product, or,
I will behind the scenes.
Yeah.
There are definitely a lot of firms that are shitting on foundation model bets.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Right. That's like, I mean, they're expensive. They're very speculative. OpenAI's in the lead. They feel like even with OpenAI, open source comes to parity very quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
the category I hear the most dunking on is just like foundation
Okay.
models, and you'll see firms that haven't made a lot of bets there. Yeah, the Valley loves like tools, picks and shovels, so
Sure.
that's not something where I feel like I've heard a lot of regret. And if anything, I feel like I've been talking like vector databases all week and stuff like that. And literally you're getting VCs talk about chips or getting companies around chips, which traditionally they've been scared about. But you have sort of the fact that NVIDIA is doing so well, and then you also have the fact that it's sort of cool to be like an emerging tech investor at the moment. So I think those things combined, you're seeing that. So no, I think
Okay.
VCs
Yeah.
dunking on foundation models, but bullish about everything else supporting AI.
Yeah. I don't
Are
know.
there particular company types you have in mind, like that you think
Well, I
OpenAI
mean,
is
I think
really
there's
going to
like
kill?
obvious companies that are like maybe less hot than they were in the last conference, right? I mean,
Well, like
like
Jasper was
Jasper would
already
be an example,
that's the
right?
classic,
Stability would be a huge
right?
example, right? But I think there's
But
companies that
stability,
like
that's just like the unique failings of that
sure,
company.
sure. But there are companies that we talked to last time, right? Langchain, for example, right? That like it's a big question as to where Langchain fits in a universe where OpenAI is just going to take care of all this crap, right?
Right.
And then, I think we're talking to some companies this week that, look, like they could totally be awesome companies, and I have no earthly clue, but they're providing very specialized tools like, data cleaning or something like that, right? Like, which again, I'm excited to hear the pitch, like of why that's a great idea for the company, and it probably is, but like, I would be a little scared that OpenAI was just going to like kick ass in my category if I were a tools company. And so I just think, and I mean, I think you have to agree that Character has to be pretty upset that OpenAI basically announced their version of Character AI tools, right? Like, so I'm just interested if there's any real feedback of the fear factor on that front, but it sounds like maybe not. So, yeah.
Do you think, just diving in on the character question, like there is a theme I've noticed of people kind of questioning whether OpenAI for consumers as an endpoint is really sufficient. So there's kind of like the opposite side of that question from the tooling side, right? Like, will they eat all tools? And then there's from the consumer assistant side, is there a super assistant that's just
Right.
ChatGPT, or do you end up using all these characters or mini GPTs that they are working to enable developers to build? How do you guys feel about that debate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the open question. I think
Yeah.
it depends on the quality of the foundation models.
I don't know. I mean, I guess like selfishly, we build games, James, that are built on AI tools, including in some cases large language models. So my selfish belief is possible to build games on LLMs without OpenAI building the exact same thing. It may depend on the complexity level of the consumer app built on top of the tool, whereas Character is sort of pretty vanilla reprompting or tweaked version
Yep.
of the core GPT experience. But I think it depends on the complexity level and sort of how much of the stack you control and how easy it is to get to your customers.
I mean, a phrase I've been hearing over and over again this week, just talking to VCs, has been retrieval augmented generation, RAG,
Rags.
and I think
Yeah.
there are a lot of companies right now that think we can be really good at giving GPT the sort of information it needs, and then OpenAI or whoever can sort of do the thinking based on that. But we're not in the business of making the best thinking company, but we're really good at figuring out like what it needs to consider, and it's possible that there are a lot of sort
What kind of
specialized
companies
businesses
do you
for that.
think are saying that around? Like, I guess this is kind of pointing to data and unique data sets as kind of a mode of some kind, right? Like, what kinds of companies do you think fit that category of potentially having a true data moat that could be valuable?
Having a data moat?
Yeah.
Well, well, this isn't a data moat, but I mean, one company, as you'll hear in the second
Isn't
half,
it a data? Isn't it a data moat that you are saying that these companies are talking to you saying we have
well, like, okay,
we
there's
have
this company
exclusive data?
Clean, right, that lets
Yeah.
companies run searches, right? Is it a data moat? They're really like good at hooking companies' data
Got it.
up to
To
data
the
sources that then connect, that use RAG and then
yeah.
plug into something like OpenAI. So it's
But
not
it does
necessarily
seem,
like a Bloomberg where it's like we have all the financial data in the world. It's we're really good at like getting the relevant data for companies into this system is one case.
but at least at OpenAI Dev Day this week, they seem to be going after some similar use cases of allowing companies and enterprises to build their own internal GPTs or chat GPTs based on internal company data. So
Right.
I think that is still some area that they seem to be competing in as well.
Right. I mean, eventually there's only so much one company can do. Unless it's like I feel like James, this is your style of suggestion throughout this series. Unless there's AGI and like every way we talk about this is wrong. But in
Yeah.
any sort of traditional business sense where like, Sam Altman, has joked in the past that like, oh, we'll ask ChatGPT at some point, like what our business model should be, and we'll do that. Clearly, they didn't need to wait for that. They figured out some business models, but anyway, my point is just like in a traditional normal world that I expect to continue, you can't do everything, and so whatever they're gonna have to pick their strengths, and then everybody else can do other stuff. I'm gonna give a last theme that's sort of more in the fun sort of philosophy sort of world, fitting into the AGI question, which is just how seriously do people take existential risk in AI? Is existential risk now seen as like this is propaganda for people who want to make it one seem really awesome and sexy and amazing and can do everything, and then two, people who want to be in this world of like shutting it down? Like how much is existential risk really on people's minds anymore, or is it much important that we just make sure it's not racist and make sure deal with these like very practical concerns that are obviously true now versus imagining this world where it's like our AI Doom episode, figuring out how to optimize paper clips into blowing up the earth.
That's kind of alluding to my earlier point about I feel like Silicon Valley has stopped taking safety as seriously, right? I mean, like I think that like, yeah, sure, the executive order is not an example of that, right? But in Silicon Valley, I think the discussion of, to your point, the implied seriousness with which people take existential risk seems pretty low to me, because otherwise people would be like blowing up GPU factories or whatever. I don't know. It's like if you actually believe this had a 20% chance of killing all of society, which a lot of people say, like, how could you morally work in this space,
Right.
or at least not like, be actively opposed to any of the development here, right? And the only people who seem to really act as if they truly believe existential risk is real is basically, Eliezer Yudkowsky and the sort of the AI doomers on Twitter, right? Who are really out there every day saying
There was an interview. Shout out to Logan Bartlett with his podcast.
Yeah.
He interviewed Dario, the co-founder of Anthropic.
Right?
And
yeah.
Dario gave like it was like 20% chance like everything goes
Right.
like
It was like
terrible.
10 to 20% chance.
That was like
for me.
really high. I think.
Is that like in the next 100 years though?
No,
Again,
I mean,
the time frames matter, right?
yeah,
Like,
I think it was reasonably soon.
okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I sort of think you'd have to be insane to be working in an industry where you truly believe that progress there had a 20% chance of ending all humanity. I don't know. Like, unless you believe in some complicated game theory about deterrence or something, and back to our earlier episode about, the only thing that can stop a good guy with an AI is, or sorry, a bad guy with an AI is a good guy with an AI. I said it wrong.
Who coined that line? Did I get that line?
I can't remember, but the only thing that can stop a bad guy with an AI is a good guy with a better AI, right? Yeah.
Right.
Unless you can explain some pretty elaborate game theory on how progress in AI by the good guys is necessary to stop extinction, it just, it doesn't compute that you believe this stuff has 20% chance of killing us. Like, and be working in the industry at the level of Dario, who literally is like the number 2 most powerful person in foundation models, right? I mean, it's nonsense. So I don't know. I agree. It doesn't seem like people take it that seriously for real.
As we discussed in that episode, though, there's a lot of like very bad things that could happen. AI kills some of us, right? Not all of us.
Yeah, that was the end game.
That was the
AI kills
takeaway.
us all. You're right.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't need
Like,
that many. Yeah.
I guess like maybe people have come around to sort of a middle ground here where it's not existential risk, like extinction for humanity, and more that there's a lot of bad things that could happen over the next 5 to 10 years with AI. And I think all of us would agree with that, right? There are bad things that could occur if some bad actors got access to some really powerful
Sure.
models or something, right?
I mean, I think the fact that Cruise is not active in San Francisco, like even if they sort of bungled their disclosures to the government, I mean, Cruise is a better driver than humans in San Francisco, right? Like
They
clearly.
really they broke the one rule, which is don't lie to the
Yeah,
government, right?
right.
I mean,
Yeah,
like it's just
I
like
know.
you can
I
be
agree.
you can be bad, you
Right,
can screw up, but don't lie to the government is like
right.
freaking like number one on the 10 commandments of running a company, right? I mean, like, that's why SBF's in jail
Travis
or
got in
whatever,
trouble with
like,
that. Yeah,
I mean, like
exactly.
just don't lie to the government.
Right,
Like, fake it till you make it can apply in many scenarios, but not with the government. You
right.
can't do that with them. So anyway,
Can we just go back to this for a second? So your what are you saying, Eric, about existential risk, or Max? Like you guys are saying companies are not acting like they believe their own hype. Would you agree with that? Or
about
I think
existential risk.
I think people are now saying, calling bullshit in sort of private existential risk, and some of them don't want to say it publicly because they don't want to be seen as sort of undermining legitimate concerns. But I think a lot of them are just like, doesn't
and
feel
then
that
how
close.
how do you feel that ties into the executive order? Does that feel to you like over-regulation, or premature
I've been sort
regulation?
of waiting until after the conference
Okay,
to stake
to
out
make a
my
stake.
position, partially just like get more information. Also, I sort of shift between information gatherer and sometimes opinion haver, and I don't know. I've been sort of waiting to
Yeah.
come out
I've,
strong, though I do have a sort of
I've,
side.
the last theme I'm actually interested in, and this is very close to home for James and I in the last couple of months, is we are increasingly discovering that the cost of running any large language model product at consumer scale is unbelievably high. Like,
Really? Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, is so high that it's very hard to come up with a mental model for how you could build anything on top of a GPT-4 quality model right now that would be distributed to consumers. You could maybe do it on 3.5, especially with some recent price cuts, with fine tuning, yada yada yada. But I would say that it is shockingly high to run a very basic application that's GPT-4 level quality on an LLM. And I think it basically makes it impossible to build consumer apps on these level of models today without incinerating money. And so I think it's an interesting question as to whether or not a lot of these companies that have raised 100 or 200 million dollars, I have to imagine their unit economics are pretty much upside down if they're building any sort of consumer product, as in every time someone uses their product, they lose more money than they make. So I wonder if the only outcome of this is that B2B companies can maybe afford this because they can charge such staggering prices, and then OpenAI is like the only one that can do consumer stuff because you pretty much have to have no middleman to afford running these applications.
Okay, so that's a great one, and I'll broaden it and just say I think the overall meta theme of that is the rubber meets the road, right? There's this, do people really care about existential risk anymore? Because it's like, oh, we're just in the practical problems. Like, it's really expensive to run consumer apps. And I've heard people in enterprise ask, like, are big companies customers sticking around, or do they try the demo and say, we didn't like it anymore? And I mean, ChatGPT, I think we're going to see in a slide during the presentation, activity sinks and then they have new features and goes up. Like, what's the resiliency? So just this, yeah, the rubber meeting the road. All right, we've gotten all the hype. Like, how are people delivering? And now is sort of the moment where it's turning into sort of more regular sort of business style questions.
I mean, this stuff is so expensive to run that it's hard to imagine you would not have to run into regular business style questions pretty quickly. Now,
Right.
I was not in the internet industry in 1993 when you had to go buy your own servers to run a website, So that this may be analogous to that time, where you had to be a GarageBand server farm to afford to run these kind of companies, but
even that would have been fixed cost, right? I mean, now we're talking about like
right. We're talking about variable costs.
The more customers you get, more expensive.
Erasing software margins. Like,
so like I'm pretty interested to see if anyone can run a consumer product without just incinerating money besides OpenAI. So stay tuned on that.
Or use. I would say the last caveat would just be using smaller models or
using smaller
open source models or fine tuning Llama or something.
Or GPT-4 gets 20 times cheaper in the next year and a half, and then this is a dumb, irrelevant, retrospective discussion. But it really has to go down by like a 10x to be interesting. So they did 3x a week ago. We need 2 more of those to really be in a good category of cost.
Yeah, we should. I mean, that is a good reminder that we should ask money, like how much does this cost? Like how, how.
Yep.
Where do you make money if prices change one way or the other? Yeah. All right. Next up, I really think you're going to want to listen to this. The draft pick. Please give us your feedback. I want insane memos about what the order strategy should have been, and just feel free to weigh in. We did, I think we explained all the particulars in James, right? You talked through.
Yes,
so,
yeah, we're about to
we don't need
jump into the rules, and there was probably more time spent behind the sines debating the rules than preparing for the draft.
I was insistent about a particular rule change that you'll hear. So we had a lot of fun. Send you Eric at newcomer.co. You can always send me your opinions about who's an idiot. I think I'll try and post the list. So please forgive us that it was a set list. There are companies. I asked if I could pick companies off list as sort of a insider with Intel, but I was not allowed to pick off list. So we were restricted to a list of companies, and we didn't pick you. Please hire a new marketing officer. I don't know. Sorry. Yeah. All right.
Find out why your valuation was also not listed in PitchBook, right? Because the list was selected from companies who are who have a recent over $100 million rounds in PitchBook.
Go listen to that. Welcome. All right, we are going to move into the draft. This is probably the thing we're most excited about, at least informed to do. Taking a page out of sports podcast, political podcast playbook, and we are going to do a draft pick of the top AI companies. James, do you want to explain the metrics for who wins this and how we know and all of
that? Here's what we're doing. Max, Eric, and I are drafting teams of AI startups. The startups must have risen over $100 million.
I wish that wasn't the case, partially because I have intel on companies that are promising, but James isn't letting me include random. I feel like there's it's a risk. They are not even valued at that yet. But
I think we have 43 companies in the list, and we're only picking 5 each. So many of these will not make it on the board. So I'm excited to see what happens. But this really shows, I think, the amount of companies who have raised ginormous rounds in AI.
Is this a 100 million plus list?
You have to have raised over 100 million, not valuation, raised.
That's publicly known. I do think also there are probably ones that aren't.
So some other criteria I used to kind of narrow down this list. You had to be using generative AI, or the company had to have generative AI or generative AI infra kind of core to it. I kind of excluded some industries like bio and healthcare, defense, silicon chips, robotics, driverless or AVs, and China. I just wanted to filter down to companies we might have a chance of knowing something about or being predictive about, rather than predicting whether some biotech company is going to use AI to discover a new drug or something. And I also wanted companies founded before, excluded companies founded before 2013. So most of these companies have been actually founded in the last 3 years or something. But there are a few who have been founded maybe earlier. So that's the game, and we are going to determine who goes first by creating a handicap auction. So
This was I was adamant.
yeah,
Ja-
that we do this.
James and Max were like, "Oh, that's part of the randomness." But to me, like a huge part of this is how much would you pay to get to pick OpenAI? Because I honestly think we're all going to pick OpenAI.
We should talk
if
about
we
what
get first pick.
what the grading criteria is
Yeah.
here. So the way we are drafting these teams, we are trying to create a team with the highest total valuation on November 1st, 2028. And final valuations would be determined by PitchBook, either kind of a reported M&A price or a current stock price if the company is public, or the last valuation if the company is still going but is private. And if the company is shut down, I think that would count as a 0 for that team.
If like
predict.
2 year, does it have to have raised at the price within the last 2 years or something? Because
No,
there's
just
a
whatever
strategy.
the last fundraise was. Yeah, just
But
period.
like it
I
might
get
not be
one-
worth that anymore.
One
Yeah,
question I
that's-
have is let's say there's a company on this list who has raised a huge round, maybe in the ZERP era, but
Right.
never raises again, but is a zombie company in 5 years. Are we counting that at their?
I think
Yeah,
we
I
have
think
to count that
valuation-
at the last valuation.
No,
Last
it
valuation.
needs to raise another round or do something in the next 5 years. Because otherwise, there's a strategy of just like picking the most highly valued companies and just betting that like nothing happens.
That's the efficient market hypothesis.
I don't think.
though.
I think
in
it should.
theory,
I think something should have to
the
happen.
current
Like, it needs
valuation
another.
is the best
I-
predictor of future
yeah.
valuations.
It needs another either of
It needs
public
another
secondary
fundraise?
reporting. Yeah, I think so.
Max, are you okay with that? Or
I mean, I don't really care. I don't think
case.
this is super
Yeah.
relevant. So whatever. You know.
It
Okay.
needs something.
Whatever you
right?
guys
Are we
decide.
agreed on that?
Yeah, we're agreed. So if the company does not raise any round between now and November
Primary
1st,
or
2028, according to PitchBook, a new round, they will count as a 0 as well. Fair? Okay.
Yep.
Brutal.
So how are we doing the bid for first and second place?
Well, I think the idea here is if we're going to just go down the line here and name a price that you are willing to subtract from your total score, and then in the end, and then determine, the order in the order of those 3 handicaps, and we will deduct those scores at the.
All right, let's just do a
in the
live
5
auction.
years.
Like whoever gets the
Yeah.
highest price, and then we stop it.
Okay, so then it's a coin flip.
Okay, fine. Coin flip for second.
Yes.
Okay, let me pull up my digital coin flipper,
Okay.
All right.
and then it's a snake draft.
Yes.
All right. Let's start. I bid negative 45 billion
For OpenAI.
for to go first.
For first pick. Okay. I'll go to 50, sure.
I'll go 55.
I'll go 60.
60 billion. Negative 60 billion.
How is OpenAI going to have an exit? I just am confused by this.
It does.
They
it
they
just
don't
needs
need
be
to have
priced.
an exit. They just need to have a fundraise.
Okay.
I'll go to 70.
75.
Okay, that's fine.
Max, you're done.
I'm done. I'm out. You got it
Great.
at 75. All right.
Okay.
First pick.
You think
Eric.
I'm a lunatic? OpenAI.
Okay. Bad pick. Bad pick. No.
I mean,
Just
don't know.
imagine I did all that to get like Anthropic or something.
I just think the number of companies that are worth like hundreds of billions of dollars on the secondary market is just extremely low. So you're basically discounting the net equity value to like 5 or 15 billion now or whatever it is. So
Sorry.
added.
yeah, it's currently valued at 80 or 90, right, on secondary markets, and you took
Right.
70, 75 off that. So
Right.
you're basically saying I'm 10 is where my starting point, and I have to get another 100 billion or whatever on this valuation.
If it's a $1 trillion company, like
I mean, yeah, that's your,
yeah, then
that's-
I crushed it. Like,
But
okay.
are they going to be a $1 trillion company as a subsidiary of Microsoft? I just don't believe that, but that's fine. This is why it's an exciting, contentious pick.
yeah, great.
Okay.
All right. Next pick.
Eric's gonna go first, and Max and I are flipping for second place. Max, name your head or tails here.
I'll take heads.
Heads. You're up second. Okay, Eric, we know what you're picking. Do you want to make it official?
OpenAI.
Congratulations.
Sam Altman knew what he was doing.
Smart guy.
Anything
All
you
right.
wanna add there, or
Well, I do also think I think Microsoft being an investor helps drive up the valuation because they're getting spend back on their system. There's all this revenue round tripping going on. I think it'll definitely raise another round or two. So I feel like it's super safe bet. I think I'm getting it if we know it's reported to be 90 billion. I'm getting it with
But if
a
Microsoft
premium
buys
already.
if Microsoft buys an additional 2% to go from 49% ownership to 51% ownership, that's like an exit in my opinion. Like OpenAI
That's an
has
exit. I
exited.
agree.
Yeah.
What do you
So-
mean?
So
No.
they have majority ownership of OpenAI. I mean, it's a subsidiary of Microsoft at that point.
No, it's just over then. Like
Yeah, I think so.
no, because if there are deals on
that's an
OpenAI
exit.
that value it as more, it's worth more. Definitely. If
know.
people are getting shares at a higher price,
There will be no shares of OpenAI though in this context. I don't know. We can see what actually
no,
plays out
if
and
the
argue about it
valuation
on
goes
future
up,
podcasts.
and there are people who own a lot of it, then yeah, it has its
Okay.
own valuation. There's no way that
You're saying, well, I guess the shares have to dissolve, is what you're saying, for it to be an acquisition. That's kind
right.
of
Yeah. Once they're in Microsoft, I
That's fine.
accept that. Like, I don't get to ride up the Microsoft benefit of.
Okay. All right.
Even
well,
though I
whatever.
do think that's a possible outcome, but
I just don't think they ever make it to whatever $1 trillion valuation is a standalone.
I don't know if
subsidiary.
Sam Altman would sell, away control to Microsoft. That seems
I don't
pretty
think so
interesting.
either. And like, there's antitrust, and like, I think this
Yeah.
is the most Microsoft is probably going to own.
Gonna own.
But I'm not willing to accept like if they own 60%, I'm f***ed.
Sure.
Like
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Mac.
Max.
I will take Databricks at number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smart pick. Smart pick.
I like Databricks. I like to think that, I mean, the goal here is obviously to really get a couple huge winners or one really huge winner, right? And I think that Databricks is obviously already a very large company, tens of billions of dollars, and I think there's probably many tens more or potentially hundreds in headroom there. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good call option on a really massive company. So that's why I'm grabbing Databricks. And also,
Yeah.
my favorite speaker from CV1 and Ali Godse, the CEO, and he's coming back for CV2. So just a little homer pick here.
Smart. Yeah, this is giving me, now my stomach's turning. I do Databricks, like I've been super bullish about them for the long time, so not to have them in my list it hurts.
All right, James.
All right.
Pick 3.
All right. I've got 2 that I'm debating.
You get 2 in a
here.
row. Snake draft.
You
here.
get 2 in a
That's
row.
true. I got
so-
2.
yeah.
Okay. I just do both of them.
Yes.
All right. I am going to go with Hugging Face as my first pick.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
high. That's high. I think you could have gotten the value bet later in the draft there.
No, I might have
No, it
picked that.
sounded like Eric was eyeing Hugging Face as well. Yeah, I think.
I just really think Hugging Face is going to exit at under 20 to Microsoft, basically. So that's
well,
my
that's
hot
good
take.
for me though. That's like a pretty good lock-in of 20 billion of
No, but
enterprise
you
Yeah,
need-
that'd
value.
be great.
You need to stack those hundreds to win this draft, James. We're going up against the $1 trillion OpenAI here.
So then
Yeah,
we
it's
should
true.
only pick foundation model companies by that.
You should
logic.
pick
That'll
whatever
be
you think can go to a
interesting.
trillion, Eric.
I
It
think
could be
Hugging-
anything.
Hugging Face has a lot of room for, I think, potentially getting to that 100 billion level if they kind of maintain with their position in essential, position in the open source community, and they potentially even build tooling around this that helps other companies use open source in their enterprises. And yeah, I just think there's a pretty high ceiling there.
GitHub
know.
sold for 7.5 billion.
Yeah, I'm just
as
saying
context.
GitHub is everything Hugging Face is and more
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Right.
And they decided to exit at the top at 7.5. So I don't know. I mean, I
Right.
love Hugging Face for the record. We're big fans, but I don't know. Not sure about the pick on the upside.
And they're a forum at the end of the day. Like, yeah.
All right, James, second pick.
Hosting. I mean, we love them, but yeah.
For my second pick, I am going with Anthropic. Huge second runner in the
Yes.
foundation model wars, I would argue. Just recently struck a pretty major partnership with Amazon. And has a lot of the same people who were originally working at OpenAI. So I think, yeah, and I've heard really positive things from developers about Claude in general. So yeah, I'm really excited about Anthropic.
Okay, this is a tough pick. I'm gonna skip through the really high fundraisers here for my second pick.
Fascinating.
Go a little more deviant. I'm going to take Pinecone, the database company. I think that what I'm hearing from my little
Your
birdies,
sources on the ground.
little birdies in the AI communities, Pinecone is the database of choice for AI developers of all stripes, and I think if you look at the history of Silicon Valley, you see really strong exits from a lot of different database companies. So yeah, I mean, I like Pinecone as I don't know. I mean, this would be a really good pick if I could get, discounted for the fact that their valuation is way lower than most of the companies on this list. But regardless, I'll take the upside.
I as a reporter does, went to a VC for advice before this. I only got one because I asked at the last minute. But he said Pinecone not there on his list. He only gave me like his 5 because I think for number 3, enterprises are wasting tons of time building toy prototypes that will ultimately be replaced by apps. So
all I care about is just the crazy upside case, and I think that's what I'm going for here. So
all right, I'm gonna. Do I get 2 now? I don't know.
You get 2 now. You get 2 now. You get to swing back.
Right, I'm like nervous. I'm gonna take Inflection.
Please explain. You got to defend your picks here.
Yeah. With the idea, one sort of top talent, obviously, like DeepMind co-founder Mustafa Suleyman. I'm not picking him because he's speaking, but I do think super legit company. I mean, obviously, you're betting a lot on the future. I do think if it's go for big swings, huge foundation model potential is key. Smart technology. I think also just like give it. I feel like there's a floor, and that it's also like a potential like acquisition to just like get some big tech company capable. Worst case. So yeah, I'm going Inflection for number 2.
Okay.
And this is a tough one. All right, I'm taking character AI. I just feel like,
man,
I feel like that. I know.
Bad pick.
I feel like you would have taken it, right? Yeah, bad because you would have taken
James
it,
likes
or
the pick. Bad pick. No. Bad pick is just a way I joke about every pick being bad. Sorry.
Wait, would you have taken character? Like
I never would have, but it sounds like James would have. So
I think I would have taken it. Yes.
I'm going on a foundation model forward strategy, and I think character, has perhaps a clearer path to a product than most. I mean, they have a very talented CEO. I mean, Andreessen Horowitz is going big on them, so they're going to get lots of follow-on funding rounds. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Something. I still think like the right now the bot sort of relationship bot thing is a little overhyped, but there's time.
What do you think about character as it is today? What is do you agree with the take that it's all sex chat or not?
I don't know. I'm not like an expert on the product, but to me, there's sort of, you get a dual bet in that they're super hardcore building their own foundation model, deep on technology, and they're actually have a product that's out there that people are finding fun ways to use. And like, I mean, Mark Zuckerberg got started with Hot or Not. So like anything that they have the sort of instinct to say like, let's get users, that to me is like a good muscle. And like, even if this first iteration isn't like the one you want the New York Times to be writing about, I think it's a good sign.
I think it's a good sort of out of the money.
You guys would not have picked Inflection though?
No, I think Inflection's a reasonable bet.
I like your picks.
Yeah. I honestly don't really know these foundation models, which is why I'm going to pick a foundation model next, baby.
All right, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, I literally think I could be choosing foundation models past OpenAI and Anthropic as a monkey throwing darts at the proverbial board would do better than me here. But I'll just go with Cohere. I'll just take the market deciding it's worth a lot. It seems like it's the number 3, number 4 best foundation model. Who the F knows is my defense of this pick. But I gotta grab a foundation model.
Everybody
Yeah.
wants to be in business, so I feel like they're going to face a ton of competition. They were early.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm freely willing to admit this
skipped
is
them.
I'm freely willing to admit this is my lowest conviction pick here, but I just feel like I gotta have a foundation model, and that to me is the best pick on the board. So be it. Onward and
Great.
upward. Maybe I'll get lucky.
Okay, I'm ready with my 2 picks.
All right.
Please fire away.
All right. First pick, going with another foundation model company.
Of course, gotta have one.
I will say you can see why VCs are investing big in foundation models, because if the goal is to go for the fences, you're like,
gives a
foundation models are big swings, and so like nobody here is really so far trying to accumulate like a bunch. Like I could name some sure things, but then you want like a swing. Anyway, James.
I'm going with AI 21 Labs, which is a Israeli foundation model company.
Solid.
Just announced a $155 million raise in August at a $1.4 billion valuation. And the participants included Google and NVIDIA. They create foundation models particularly targeted at writing, and they are known for their cutting edge Jurassic models. So yeah, I'm impressed with the founding team and the product.
Yeah, and they've got some. I think they have a partnership maybe with Amazon. Like I've seen them come up, but it feels like they're under the radar a little bit.
I think it's a little bit of an under the radar pick, but a solid
that makes
team
sense
building
to me.
foundation models.
Yep.
I mean, I would say that if they are Israeli and they're valued at 1.4, probably in the U.S. they'd be valued at 14 billion. So I think
a lot of upside.
Yeah, exactly. Like that seems like a good cost of living adjustment right there.
All right, and with my next pick, I'm taking Replit.
Amjad, yeah.
Another
Great CEO.
CVAI alumnus, if you will.
So Replit.
You have Hugging Face and Replit. They're on the same panel together.
You're just a big CVAI drafter here. I love it.
I like to meet the founders and get to know them. And, practicing for.
In the end, it's really just about on the founders.
It's really about the people. It's about the people.
It's really about the founders when you think about this stuff. Yeah, founder market fit, if you will.
All right, what's your
Amjad
argument?
definitely has founder Twitter fit.
Aren't Replit and Hugging Face like in the like $1 trillion case? They're like fighting with each other, right? They're both like in the coding world.
I don't agree with that. I think that Replit, the $1 trillion case here is that software engineering changes dramatically due to AI, and we enter this world of everyone's an engineer. You're using a cloud-based IDE. You can use AI really aggressively as you're coding, and you don't even need to really learn how to code. And I think they're the ones who are furthest along at kind of building that vision that I do believe is possible with AI.
That was not on my draft board. All right.
Yeah, I don't think I would have picked it.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with another homer pick. I will be taking Modular, another founder I will be interviewing on stage at CVAI too. For the backstory here, for the backstory here, Chris Latner, who co-founded Modular, literally invented the Swift programming language that is on every iPhone, every Mac, every iPad in the world. Probably one of the top 5 to 10 most used programming languages ever invented. So he's obviously a beast. He has shown tremendous facility in creating really low-level technical products that are used by literally hundreds of millions of people, if not billions. Before that, he created a tool called low-level virtual machines that is also basically everywhere. So I'm just saying Chris Latner gets W's, and he is trying to reinvent the programming language for AI and replace Python with a new language called Mojo that Modular has invented. And so, look, I frankly don't know what the business model is here or where we're going with this part, but Chris Latner puts points on the scoreboard, so that's what I'm hoping he'll do for my team here. So Modular AI.
I am breathing like a huge sigh of relief because I took character instead of this company, thinking the character was going to be a more competitive pick, and I think
And you
that
were
maybe
right.
proved true. And this company did not get scooped up. I am taking what I would have actually probably put as my third pick, but strategically dropped to 4.
Mm.
Glean, which is sort of doing
Mm.
corporate search. Sequoia back company. Lightspeed, Ravi, the key guy at Lightspeed is on it, and Mamoon Hamid at Kleiner Perkins is an investor in this company. So I just feel like it's one of these like, I don't know,
Wow.
what do they all know?
You were
Yeah.
really like a venture capital fundamentalist here. Like
Trust
like
the winners, like,
Eric's like, have you ever heard of that fallacy of appealing to authority? Well, I go the other way and say
it
it's
works
the way.
pretty well. Like, like
You should always appeal to authority.
I mean, what? We don't have the financials. What are you doing? You're looking
Nah,
for a
it's fair.
signal. Like, I mean, what is better signal than like Sequoia, Mamoon, and Ravi? Like, I don't know what it is. I think they're good VCs, and like, I don't have metrics. So what am I going? And honestly, my VC guru that I went to, here's his case for Glean. Semantic search over business data is the biggest use case. This opportunity overshadows all the in-house builds people are using LangChain, etc. for. So instead of cobbling it together yourself, use Glean. Like I buy that.
Wasn't this the Tanium pitch, which also like is sort of
Well, yeah,
middling
Tanium.
around?
You need to look into the
Yeah.
eyes of the co-founders. Are like, are you going to actually help your investors make money out of this company? Anyway.
Okay, well, there you go. Interesting pick.
Okay, so now I have a last one. This one, I'm debating between like product that's solid, protect my sort of minimum, versus like upside potential. Man, this is like I have empathy for VCs. It's like, should I go crazy, like hope and a dream, or should I go sort of like product that people actually use today?
I'd like to think you would do more than 10 minutes of research, which is what we've done on this.
I don't know. Do VCs do that?
I don't
think,
know,
like,
though.
They get the financials. We don't get anything. I get some of these companies haven't like done anything, but like
you already did what most VCs do, which is ask their VC friends who they should invest in, and just go with that.
it works. Lots of people
We'll see,
make a lot
we'll
of
see.
money doing that. All right, I'm going for the hope and dream of the entire European continent, Mistral
God.
AI.
Oh my gosh, I thought you were going to say something else,
Interesting.
but yeah,
Yeah,
Vladimir Zelensky. All right. luck.
Mistral is super hypey. I think Lightspeed is an investor, European. They're very early, super hypey, but smart founders.
I'm really enjoying this draft because I really would not have picked almost any of the companies you guys picked, and I feel like
Interesting.
that must apply to me too. So
Yeah.
we can review each other's teams at the end here.
I know who
All
my
right.
6 would be, so I'll tell you at the end.
I am also gonna go hope and a dream here a little bit more. So I obviously read and researched all the founders of these companies, and I was very taken by this founder's vision of self-improving foundation models. So the idea of recursive improvement of a foundation model. And so that was the pitch of Imbue, our friend Kenjun, who on a hope and a dream, and I assume some really solid demos, has raised $234 million. But I think if you're going for true takeoff trillion-dollar companies,
Right.
as it were, the first person to figure out how to make AI recursively self-improving has a good shot at being a trillion-dollar company. So I'll put some chips on Kenjun and see what happens.
Yeah, I think they're very bullish on like agents, right? I mean, which
Right,
is part of
and
it.
self-improving agents as well, which I think was exciting. So I'll throw $5 into that $234 million pot and help them get there.
All right, James.
Final pick.
All right. With my final pick, I am taking Adept.
Interesting.
Nice.
Very highly
Alum.
valued.
Cerebral Valley
another
one.
CV alum. Yeah.
Obviously, super high valued and highly funded. As far as I can tell, They've raised
Yeah.
close to $500 million, right?
Woo.
Essentially, they are trying to create a new way to have AIs interact with computers. Essentially, creating agents that can control computers. I don't even know. I put this as a co-pilot, I guess, but I don't even know if this is like. This seems like a brand new type of concept, creating AI agents that can interact with computers on your behalf. It's a pretty science fiction-y idea. So, could be a huge flop, or it could change the way the world works.
Founders have left in droves. I feel like lots of internal turmoil. I feel like it was hyped earlier. Other there was a founder breakup at the company, which is certainly a negative sign, but
A little scary,
but
you never know.
Still possible.
From the ashes rises the phoenix.
Right. I mean, the CEO is David Luan, former I think VP at OpenAI. Certainly was there sort of early days. Super smart guy. But yeah, can't keep the original team together.
Interesting.
I think working on AI agents in some capacity that can, like to your earlier point about self-improving AI and reinforcement, or maybe Max, you were talking about that. I think there's something there that could unlock a lot of value. So I'm excited that they're working in that area.
Sure. Got it.
My zoom out, I'm most stressed that I should have just hoped for a second and gotten Databricks for cheap, because I do think, Max, you got a great deal on the
grab
second.
a cheap one there, yeah.
And Databricks is like a pretty sure thing, almost more sure than OpenAI. I feel like the upside.
I mean,
our producer says he's picking Descript because we're editing the podcast with that, and also that was one I was seriously considering for 5 working product, but I didn't know how much technical what their level of tech sophistication was, so I didn't pick it.
What are other ones on the board, left on the board? Anything you guys are surprised
notable
to see?
I mean, Jasper obviously is like everybody's afraid of. Rappers.
I feel like Snorkel has gotten a lot of hype with like internal data cleaning within companies.
They're speaking.
That's what I've heard. Yeah. They're always bouncing around when I'm hearing.
Writer raised a bunch of money at 500 million, so I'm interested to see sort of there was sort of a good price. Lots of money, good price for investors.
It's interesting. Humane, which makes that little pin that's supposed to replace your iPhone that you wear on your jacket or whatever that you talk to. Nobody put that on the board. That seems like a tough sell. But
hardware is hard.
Hardware is very hard.
Yeah.
They just launched it at Paris Fashion Week, which is odd. I don't know.
I mean,
some weird
Scale, was making bank off of throwing humans at self-driving car problems, and now they're trying to make bank at human reinforcement learning for foundation models. But it's just hard to believe, it's humans. Like, they just don't seem like that. We don't
need them anymore. We don't need humans.
I know. I want a big automated.
Don't need this middle ground thing. I mean, stability not being in the discussion, compared to last 6 months ago is quite interesting.
Right.
Obviously, there's been. Well, first of all, there's been a ton of competition, and Midjourney has gotten super good and all that stuff. And then secondly, obviously there was the story about the founder making a bunch of stuff up, which was interesting.
I think
Midjourney was left off the board here because they haven't taken VC funding, by the way, but they could be a super valuable.
I know. Hard to maybe never get a valuation. It's a cash flow business, but Midjourney, man, I would definitely have taken that before Mistral. I think.
Interesting.
I think Weights and Biases, really good company, but I'm just like, what sort of, is it really going to gobble the world? Runway, love the founder. Like, he's so charming, but, I feel like maybe, the narrative there is like, does Adobe wish they could have bought Runway for like way less than they paid for Figma, when Runway is sort of the relevant company now? Lots of great companies. I wouldn't write off most of them. I don't even know what Go Student is. I didn't look into that. That's the most high fundraise. Did anybody research Go Student?
I researched it a bit. So my understanding is they're a European company who kind of got started in this tutoring space and raised a lot of money, and now is building LLMs to do tutoring. But I was a little skeptical of like whether that was a current product or not, or prototype. Yeah, so that's why I kind of ruled them out.
My last point would just be I was really struck in doing the research how unbelievably difficult it is to even tell what the products of a lot of these companies are,
Right.
or how they're differentiated. And I mean, you could really just like throw buzzwords like large model learning, like reinforcement, something, internal data, external data, whatever, and just spit out a new TechCrunch article with like a fake company name every day.
Right.
And I would find them very similar to a lot of the research I did for this. So it's,
Yeah. I mean, poolside, like I've written about it. It's for code. I mean, partially it's earlier on the foundation model journey, but yeah, there are a lot where it's like, man,
it is remarkable how many similar-ish, like either data or foundation model or something about enterprise plus LLMs companies there are that are in this category. It's amazing.
To me, there's my zoom out on my view is that like Max, I mean, a lot will fall on Databricks,
Of course.
and that Anthropic could beat, that people plausibly think Anthropic could beat OpenAI, in which case, like, James got a great pick.
Discounted
there.
OpenAI.
Anthropic is the only one I like from James. Yeah, really.
Anthropic is the one I want.
Although
Databricks,
I like your Israeli one, AI 21 also. That's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Which ones do you like from Eric? I guess the top
I mean,
two.
OpenAI obviously is untouchable, but I think I think Inflection is also quite strong. The rest, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Character,
and whereas your team's just rock solid.
My team is immaculate. No, I would say other than Databricks, I have no sure things, but I took call options on hopefully giant upside. Like I could see my team having 3 zeros on it, but as long as the 2 are big, I'm going for the win that way. Yeah.
We really had to do a lightning a speed run of learning VC's portfolio strategy here.
We do not have the data, we don't get to talk to anybody. We're just severe. This is not real VC. We were playing basically with blindfolds on, but it was very enjoyable conversation piece.
It's kind of funny that we had to like pick companies that could return the fund. They all have to like be home runs. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
Very excited to see in 5 years. Hopefully, we'll follow up and like some of us will look like, maybe all of us will look like idiots, and this space will be
probably
wildly overhyped, and maybe my negative 75 billion will like swamp the total value, and then we can just. I don't think that's likely, but.
As a closer, do you just want to read off everyone's team? These podcasts.
For people not watching, the teams are Team Eric with a negative $75 billion handicap that I paid to go first, so I could scoop up OpenAI number 1, Inflection number 2, Character AI number 3, Glean number 4, and Mistral AI number 5. Max, you want to read yours?
Yeah, my team is Databricks, Pinecone, Cohere, Modular, and Imbue, also known as the best team.
And James?
I went with Hugging Face, Anthropic, AI 21 Labs, Replit, and Adept.
That's our episode, and that's the Cerebral Valley AI series. Watch for YouTube videos. I'm sure I'll have Max and James once I'm like not fatigued of talking back to sort of reflect on it, but I'm not promising it immediately. But this has been a great run. Thank you for sticking with us, and if you missed some of the earlier episodes, go back and listen to them. Thank you so much to Scott Brody, who's been the producer through all this and help us figure out the show. So shout out to him. Thanks to Riley Kinsella, Gabby Caliendo, both key in sort of getting the conference and everything together. Thank you for everyone who's going to speak. Stick around. Please like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe to newcomer.co and go play Song Quiz on your Alexa. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Thanks guys.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.